The Merdeka 118 is the second tallest building on the entire planet and the tallest in all of Asia. And at the very top, an ultra-luxury brand new hotel. In fact, one of you commented this on one of my recent reviews, so I did some research, flew to Malaysia, and decided to do a full hotel review. And yes, another tower climb. Malaysia quietly completed construction of this building back only in 2023, and it took $1.5 billion to build it. Just for context, that's almost a half a mile up in the sky all the way to the top, and it's one of only 4 mega skyscrapers on the planet that exist. Now, there is some controversy around the height of this building, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later in this review. I reviewed this hotel out of 50 points in 5 categories like always. The categories are the ambiance, the room, the dining, the service, and the it factor. I'm not sponsored by this hotel. I was not paid to do this. I paid full price myself and am staying here for the first time. They did tell me that the room is ready a little bit early, so let's get in there, head all the way up to the top, and take a sneak peek. All right, we have so much more in this tower to cover, and we'll see the room a little bit later. For now, let's get into the ambiance. I want to stop the elevator for a second just to tell you a little bit more about this tower. So this elevator is actually the fastest in all of Malaysia and goes from the ground floor all the way to the top in about 65 seconds. Now, everything in this review is from floors 75 to 118. Everything below that is just offices. All right, let's keep it moving. Kicking off our ambiance segment and our tower climb, this is the grand entrance to the Merdeka. This building took 10 years to build, and it is still under construction. In fact, the Park Hyatt is the only operating business that's currently in this building, but as soon as other businesses start to move in, it has a 10,000 person capacity. On this ground floor is the reception right up these stairs and the valet, but other than that, there's not really much else going on down here. However, there is one more thing I want to tell you about. As soon as you walk in the hotel, there are metal detectors actually in the doors, and the security doesn't stop there. They also take your luggage and scan it in the back room and then give it back to you. And I was actually told the scanners are even more powerful than what they have at the airport. It is very, very secure, and you are very protected here at the Park Hyatt, maybe even a little too much. But now that our bags are scanned, I want to take you upstairs. On the 75th floor, here is the main front desk. You have some beautiful minimalistic marbling going on here and some incredible artwork, including 2 different maps of the area. This is really an exceptionally beautiful area to receive you, but you do have to come all the way up to the 75th floor to get here because the ground floor, as you saw, is mainly reception. There's not much happening here on the 98th floor, but there is a surau, which is a dedicated worship space for Muslims, and they have some meeting spaces. Like this meeting space that you could rent. Let's keep it moving. The 99th floor now, and this is the spa. So the spa has Himalayan salt chambers, vitality pools, and aromatherapy steam rooms. They also have some very interesting treatments that are tailored to your circadian rhythm, so morning, night, and sleep. I've been feeling a little jet lag lately, so I booked the Malaysian healing ritual just to show you how it is. The pressure was incredible. It was a very simple massage, so I'm not sure where the Malaysian healing comes in. It was more of just a traditional Swedish massage, but who's complaining? Not me. Now, right next to the spa is the Sky Infinity pool. We're very high up here on the 99th floor, but this is not the tallest pool in the world. That actually goes to the Ritz-Carlton Hong Kong that I reviewed, and this is pretty darn close. However, this room is so peaceful, so serene. You have an incredible view overlooking the city of Kuala Lumpur, and it's furnished pretty beautifully in here as well. Taking a quick break from Merdeka 118, I want to tell you something that's a little more personal about myself. So many of you have been commenting, asking, how do I afford these hotels? How do I travel all over the world? And so thanks to today's sponsor, Founders Card, I want to tell you a little bit more about how I got here and who I am exactly. Let's go inside because behind me is my first ever apartment building in Los Angeles. It is so strange being back here all these years later. In fact, this right here was my first apartment in LA. It is a small studio that I shared with a roommate. The kind neighbors over here would give me oranges every day just so I could survive out here by myself in LA. Yes, it is a far cry from the meals and the things that you've seen here on the channel so far, but the idea for the company that brings me to all of these countries started right here. So that company is called TSMA. And 10 years later now, I get to travel all over the world and work with the most incredible creatives and collaborate. The same way I built TSMA from the ground up, I'm putting everything in this channel to make the best possible hotel reviews for you to watch as well. So you might be wondering, how does Founders Card play into all of this? Well, Founders Card is a membership program for entrepreneurs, founders, and really anyone who is starting a new venture that gives you the perks and benefits that you would have had at a major corporation. I wish I would have had Founders Card back when I was living here. The discounts on hotels and travel and health and wellness, on software you need to start a business are exceptional. In fact, if you click the link in my description, you get your first year free to try Founders Card membership. That taste of what the membership is actually like will show you all of the perks and benefits that you really can't find all in one place anywhere else. Founders Card reached out to me for this sponsorship and let me tell all of you my story, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to do it. So thank you, Founders Card, for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into the tower climb. And the final section on this floor is the gym. It is clean, modern, minimalistic, and it has life fitness equipment. Otherwise, there's nothing really too standout in here other than this view while you're exercising. That is far from everything in this massive tower, but those are all of the public spaces currently available to guests. We're gonna go even higher in a second, but before we give it an ambiance score, you have to see this hotel at night. We've arrived to the ambiance score section of the review, and this is a harder number to give. Because on one hand, the building is a little corporate, cold, sterile, and lacks soul like other hotels have. But on the other hand, the public spaces are furnished beautifully, and just look how stunning this building actually is. Now, the spa was good, but it wasn't that memorable, and the gym, we could say the same. However, we didn't get a chance to see the very top floors of this hotel yet. They don't open until 2027. So this number might change in the future, but for now, I gave the ambiance a 7.5 out of 10. I now want to take a closer look at the rooms. All of the rooms in this hotel are from floors 100 to 112. I have a couple surprises in there for you, and one of them is that my room is on the very top floor of this hotel. That makes my room one of the tallest hotel rooms in the entire world. So there are 225 other rooms similar to this in this building and 27 additional suites. The room card that they give you is a beautiful wooden room card with a very nice textured pattern on the top. And this room goes for about $450 US per night at the time of recording this. That's about 1750 Malaysian ringgit. First impressions of the room, brand new, very clean, beautifully organized, and quite spacious. I want to start, however, with the bed. Very simple, very clean, very large bed. So of course, I'm gonna sleep in this and give it a full review in the morning when I wake up, but at first glance, it's very well made. Almost a little too simple, to be honest. You have this Headboard here behind with some fake leather. We'll talk about the textures and details in just a minute, and there's some nice soft mood lighting. There are quite a lot of modern technological integrations next to the bed here, as well as a blackout curtain, which I am a big fan of. There's an outlet that's universal for all different types of outlets. Technologically, you have everything you need right next to the bed. Now, speaking to the details in the room and the textures, they chose this very interesting kind of almost fabric. There's a natural organic fabric that's held back by a net here for the wall, and then the wood itself, which I was trying to figure out if it was real wood or a laminate alternative. It's very hard to tell. I'm leaning more towards almost like a laminate, but the materials generally are quality in here. You have a small seating area in every base level room, which is this right here. And other than that, there's not much else to see in the main room. I want to show you the mini bar before we get in the bathroom and test the shower. It almost feels Japanese inspired. You have your tiny tea kettle here, very cleanly, well organized espresso machine on the right with your pods, glassware, beautifully lit. Very nice backsplash here with a lacquered brown with this ambient mood lighting underneath the glassware. Down below is your mini bar. Now, nothing really too interesting in here other than fresh melt coconut water and a refrigerated bar of chocolate. So we'll talk about this a little bit more in the dining segment, but chocolate is a very big part of the Park Hyatt Kuala Lumpur. There's actually many chocolate bars in this room. On the other side, so this is a salted egg yolk potato crisp. I love it when a mini bar incorporates local flavors, local ingredients. It even has the Petronas Towers on the front of it, so it's definitely here from KL. I have to give it a try. Definitely has an egg yolk taste to it. Wow, that's interesting. That is a very solid mini bar offering. Now, I want to test the shower. But before I do that, take a look at this bathroom. This is so seamlessly worked into the rest of the room. You saw that just now. You can leave the bedroom, walk right into the bathroom. You have that incredible view, which we've talked about many times in this video so far, right here from your private bathtub. This is a very large bathtub with a robe, but there are a couple of things in here that you don't see very often. Let me show you. You have this very nice granite countertop, and one of the interesting, unique features of the room is this flush control for the sink itself. I haven't seen this design integration in any room thus far, and I think it's a very interesting and modern approach to controlling a sink. Over here you have a real orchid, a floating vanity mirror and side vanity mirror with a halo light, and a massive mirror on the right side as well. Dual vanity, dual sink, two waters in the front. Hyatt understands hotels. They will make sure you have everything you need during the stay. And I'm curious if the shower holds up to the rest of this incredible room. The shower test, like always, is 3 criteria points. That's the size, the ease of use, and the pressure. Let's start with the size. Very spacious shower, however, there's nowhere to sit in here, but the glass gives you a sense that it actually continues into the rest of the room. Getting into ease of use, you have 2 different dials here that at first glance are already a little bit complicated. So on the bottom, you control your temperature, and on the top, you have the number 1 and 2. Number 1 is the hand sprayer, and number 2 is your rain shower. Once you figure that out, however, it's pretty easy to use. Control your temperature with the dial below. Now, although it's a new hotel, only opening about 6 months ago, I can already tell some of these nozzles on the top just haven't been cleaned as much as maybe they should be. Some of the spouts are actually spraying sideways, some of them are clogged, but the pressure, even with that, is fairly decent. It's a soft rain pressure, so this shower definitely passes the shower test. Now, it may not look like much, but I need to show you the toilet. This is a Toto Japanese modern toilet, which is a huge plus in luxury hotel stays. This has a bidet function, an air function, a heater function. You saw it automatically opens, and it's in every single room here at the Park Hyatt. All right, I'm gonna change into a robe now and start to get ready for sleep. The turn down service has completed. That's when the staff come into the room before bed and set up the room for sleep at a luxury hotel. So you can see they've pulled back the sheets here, they've dimmed all the lights, but there is no turn down amenity. At many luxury hotels that I review, they'll at least have some chocolates on the pillow at a minimum. There's nothing like that in here, so we'll consider that in the service segment a little later. However, before I go to sleep and test the bed, I want to call the front desk and order room service breakfast for a certain time tomorrow morning. Now, later in the review, we're going to see if the food showed up on time, if it was hot, if it was fresh, but I always order the exact same thing. Before I do that, I want to say thank you for watching this, and if you are watching and you're not subscribed yet, please just take a second to do that. I don't ask for that very often, but it does really help. Let's call the front desk.
Very good evening. Please.
Yes, could I order room service breakfast for tomorrow morning, please?
Certainly. And is the worker?
Yes, that's right.
So you have your money back.
Great. Could I have an Eggs Benedict, please, and a black coffee?
Okay, so which you will go the money back away. The Park breakfast and cup with the black coffee.
Just the black coffee and the Eggs Benedict is perfect.
Okay, so black coffee and then egg benedict.
That's wonderful.
They had the children.
No, just those two is perfect. Thanks so much.
That daily thing. May I know what time to it will be delivered to your room or delivered to
Yes, let's do it for 7 a.m., please.
7 a.m. to deliver to your room?
That's wonderful.
And thank you so much. Then thanks for that. You
That was great. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's get some sleep. Okay, well, not much to say about this mattress. Right in the middle of the line for luxury hotel beds that I've stayed at. It has a nice comforter on top. The room does get cold, which is great, so this is nice and warm. There's a good contrast there. The mattress is firm, but not too firm. It is a comfortable sleep. It is now officially time for that room score. Overall, this was a lovely stay at the Park Hyatt. I was pleasantly surprised. All of the materials in the room were high quality, with the exception of the headboard and the bed. The plants in the room are all real and regularly refreshed. The minibar had a lovely assortment of diverse items right here from Kuala Lumpur. The bed was relatively comfortable, but not the best night's sleep that I've had, so that's a consideration. But the toilet is definitely the best you can get in a hotel room. That alone might bring the points up in this segment by at least 1. The shower was great. Now, I would have loved to see some more local art, or maybe just something that tells the story of the Malaysian people, the Malaysian Independence Day, or just being in Kuala Lumpur. You could kind of pick up this hotel room and place it in any Park Hyatt anywhere in the world, and you couldn't really tell the difference. However, I really enjoyed my stay in this room, and I gave it an 8 out of 10. There are 3 restaurants here at the Park Hyatt currently, and one of them you absolutely just have to see to believe. So I'm going to take a shower, which, by the way, I didn't mention before, is 100% solar power heated. I'm going to change, get down there, and we'll give it a dining score. Kicking off the dining segment, good morning from the Park Lounge. So this is a breakfast and breakfast buffet menu here today. And of course, you start your day with incredible views of Kuala Lumpur. You have the sun rising over the mountains in the distance. You've got a hot coffee here. From an atmosphere perspective, this is really an excellent spot. The buffet looks incredible, but they do also have some traditional Malaysian dishes that I absolutely must try. A few of them are here in front of me. and they're bringing even more in just a second. The first dish that came out is kaya toast. So this is a crispy piece of toast with layers of butter and coconut jam. There's also a very soft egg with soy sauce on the side. So this is a very traditional Malaysian dish that will be served in many cafes throughout Kuala Lumpur. It's usually served in a cup with an egg that you would actually mix and dip the bread into the cup. But this is a more, of course, Park Hyatt elevated version of that. Oh wow, there's a lot of butter on this toast, and the sweetness actually really cuts the butter, the heaviness of it. I officially like kaya toast. I'll definitely order that again. Wow. I mean, bread, butter, sugar, egg. It's basically like a dessert, but it's very good. There are so many options here. However, I'm gonna end the breakfast with their beef noodle, which we've been told 3 or 4 times is something I absolutely must try here. It's great. I can see why they really were pushing for me to try this one. It's not too salty, perfect mix of flavors, very strong start to the dining segment for the Park Hyatt in the Park Lounge. As I mentioned, they also do afternoon tea with a view here, and there's a bakery bar that I want to hit really quickly before I show you something very interesting for the lunch segment. This is the bakery bar. It is right next to the Park Lounge that you just saw. There are pastries and desserts, but there is one thing on their menu I absolutely must try. So right here is really what they're known for here at the bakery bar. This is the vanilla millefeuille, and they are about to cut it for us right here. It's a French vanilla dish puff pastry, and the vanilla here is actually from Penang in Malaysia. And they actually cut this every day for guests. They go through 4 to 5 of these in any given day. Mouth is watering just thinking about it. I can definitely see why they're selling 4 to 5 of these huge blocks every single day. Definitely getting me ready for our next stop in the dining segment. This next one you also just need to see to believe. The fun keeps going. This next dining venue is very interesting. I'm sitting here in cacao, which is mixology fused with chocolate. So all of their cocktails, snacks, and activations are chocolate-based. There's some quite strange things here that I've not seen before. Like this cocktail, for example, has a cacao chocolate topper to it and Vietnamese chocolate inside of it. I don't know the significance of chocolate to the Park Hyatt, to the Merdeka, but I think everyone here is happy this exists. The chocolate in there is perfect. It's a very subtle note. There's Johnny Walker Black Label in there. I don't really like sweet or chocolatey drinks usually. This one is an exception. Now, it wouldn't be called cacao without chocolate. So on the other side of the room here, they have a huge chocolate block, and they give you tools to just chip off the chocolate that you'd like to have. It's a part of the experience here. For all you chocolate lovers out there, come to Kuala Lumpur and try cacao. Now for the main event in the dining segment, this is dinner at Merdeka Grill. There's an a la carte menu, but they also have a multi-course option. And like always, I asked for the most popular things on the menu, ordered those tonight, and one of them is a dessert that you have to stick around to see. The service so far has been actually impeccable, incredible. There is lemons in the water, everything is clean. There were 3 or 4 staff that welcomed me in. And again, remember, they don't know I'm doing a review here, so this is just their average service experience. The first course that came out, if you can call it a course, is their bread, which is adorable. It's a salted bread here. It's a little dry, but it's a solid start. The first dish has arrived. This is a lobster bisque, and I will say at first glance, it's not the most appetizing presentation. However, I love that they poured the bisque over the coconut. But together, it looks a little bit like an amalgamous mix of different liquids, and the colors don't really blend very nicely, so maybe worth looking at the actual design of the dish and the plating. However, most important is the flavor. Interesting. So, very heavy on the coconut, lesser so on the seafood and the lobster. Will say the seafood in this dish is pretty poorly cooked. It's actually very overcooked. Very spongy shrimp. The scallops are a little bit firm, maybe not something I'd order again. So this is their cedar plank salmon. You could smell it as soon as he brought it over. There's some sliced grapes with mustard seed, very unique on the side here. There are 3 different types of fish eggs in this sauce on top of the salmon. I wish you could be here to smell this because, wow, I am excited for this one. They have redeemed themselves here with the main course. Perfectly cooked. The cedar plank adds a ton of flavor to the salmon. Ooh, I love the cream sauce on top. It's not too fishy, which can sometimes happen when you have 3 different types of fish eggs in a fish dish. Spot on. So as you already know by now, the chocolate here at the Park Hyatt is a very popular part of staying here. So I didn't get a chocolate dessert. You already saw that earlier. I had to try their caviar ice cream. So yes, they have an ice cream dish with caviar on top for dessert. I'm gonna finish this salmon, and that's coming up next. The most famous dish has arrived. I would assume that it's a little bit of salty, a little bit of sweet, and you get a really nice combination of those flavors. So let's give it a try. Whoa. All right, my first impression, the flavor profile out of the gate, completely different than what I expected. The caviar hits right at the end with that salty, kind of intense flavor that cuts the sweetness of the ice cream. That's more of an experience than really something that I could review flavor-wise. I do think it's an acquired taste because you have to like caviar, you have to like ice cream. I happen to really like both. Really a nice end to this dinner here. So everything here in this restaurant is actually cooked in an open kitchen with a ton of chefs. At one given time, there was maybe 14 or 15 chefs all working in a tiny space that every guest here can actually see. Honestly, this is an excellent way to end the dining segment. Now, let's give this hotel a dining score. All right, actually, I lied. One more thing in the dessert here. So the waiter came over and said he's actually seen the channel before and wanted to give me a special additional course. This is a raspberry sorbet with a pavlova on the left here with some gold foil. Citrus zest. Amazingly rich cream. Ooh, this is a really nice one. I'm glad that they added this in. Okay. All right, now let's give it a dining score. All 3 of the restaurants here were very solid in their own right, but none of the dishes are gonna stick with me after I check out. Some of the presentation, like the soup for example, was just unappetizing, but others, like the cedar plank salmon, were really excellent. Generally speaking, you have 3 restaurants here, so the diversity of the different dishes you could have is relatively small, but the presentation and the quality of the flavors was pretty consistent. I gave the dining a 7.5 out of 10. Now, service is so important to a luxury stay, and it's also the hardest score to give on the channel, but luckily I have some tried and true tests here for the Park Hyatt team that I can't wait to see how they respond. The breakfast has arrived for the breakfast service trial. It is 7:10 a.m., so they were unfortunately 10 minutes late with this one at the Park Hyatt, but this breakfast really does look exceptional. Now, because I ordered the exact same thing at every luxury hotel across the world, you can actually compare the pricing for the service trial and see how it fares. And here at the Park Hyatt in Malaysia, it was 100 ringgit with service charge. 100 ringgit is $25.50. So if you look at this grid here, you'll see all of the other hotels that I've recently reviewed. It doesn't include gratuity, but here in Malaysia, gratuity is not really very common as a practice. The breakfast looks pretty excellent, but we won't know for sure until I cut it open, of course, test the runniness of the eggs, and get a little of this coffee. Let's see. Whoa. Nice. On this side here. That's very fresh. So the reason I do Eggs Benedict is that this egg yolk can actually tell you how fresh this dish is, how recently it was made, if it's been sitting out, and it tells you a little bit about how it's actually prepared. That is a thick English muffin. Wow. This isn't the dining segment of this review, but the flavors are really fantastic. However, that English muffin is very thick, probably too thick, honestly. It kind of dominates the entire dish. Regardless, let's pour some coffee. My favorite part of every one of these videos. There's nothing like that first cup. Wow. Very good. Presentation, display, how fresh the actual meal is, all very good. But when it arrived, unfortunately, is nearing on the verge of not acceptable. Depending on if you had a meeting that morning or maybe you had somewhere you needed to go, that little delay can sometimes make a big difference. Even so, I do feel they passed the breakfast service trial, but by a very thin margin. However, we won't be able to give this hotel a final service score until that service test. The service test is the part of this review where I call the front desk and ask for something they're not used to accommodating or hearing. I have asked for so many strange things on this channel in the past, you should definitely go take a look at some of those other videos. But here in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, I keep seeing this particular kind of art. It's called batik art, where they take a fabric and use wax to actually segment the paint. Some beautiful patterns and beautiful designs come from it. I'm curious if here at the Park Hyatt, they might be able to either make me or find me a piece I could bring home. Hi there, this is Ryan. Can you hear me all right? Hi there, I have kind of a strange request for you. I keep seeing batik art all throughout Kuala Lumpur. I don't know if anyone on your staff knows batik art or can find it, but would love just something like that, a souvenir.
What they have to offer basically is they do have, like, for example, scarves, some bags, some notebooks.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Nothing else choice.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so I will say this is one of the worst phones in a hotel room that I've experienced personally. It's very difficult to hear them, but what I gathered was they are able to find some batik art in the shops in the area, and they're going to see which pieces I might be interested in. So he's going to either send it to me or show up in the room. That part I did not quite gather, but it sounds like they're going to be able to do it. So let's see what they bring. Now, while we're waiting for the batik art, let's talk about the service generally around the hotel while we do a little walk. So the service was very attentive here and very on top of it at all times. However, there are a couple things that you didn't see. In the dining, for example, they brought out that special extra dessert because they knew the channel, and then they put it on the bill. When I referenced that it was put on the bill by accident, they then of course took it off a little bit later. But little things like that getting missed can make a big difference. Also, there were no welcome amenities when you checked in, no welcome drink, no welcome amenity in the room, and there was no turn down amenity. So all of that is a consideration in the service as well. However, the staff were very, very hands-on throughout the entirety of the stay, but there was no text-based communication system, at least not one that they use with me. And if there is one on WhatsApp or otherwise, they just didn't tell me that that was part of actually staying in this hotel, so I didn't use it. This service score is going to be a little more challenging to give, but let's see how they did with that test. All right, the service test is in. The Batik Boutique is what they had picked. And I think he said we got a scarf here, but let's take a look. So this was 200 Malaysian ringgit, which is about 50 US dollars. Look at this, the packaging is beautiful. They delivered it right to the door. Batik Boutique is an award-winning social enterprise that blends Malaysian heritage and sustainability by partnering with artisans to create authentic batik products. Here we go. Wow, look at this here. So you can't really tell, I'm sure, through the camera, but it's a high-quality fabric that they have. Using the batik method is how they actually create these different patterns. And this is, I was told, an authentic batik store. This is something I will keep in my house for a very long time. The Park Hyatt definitely passed the service test here and was able to find this, source it, and bring it relatively quickly at a good price. That's kind of how the service has been here overall. Efficient, really on top of it, but there are a couple of things that were just missing, like I already mentioned, in the service experience generally. I gave the service an 8 out of 10. The It Factor category is comprised of 3 considerations: the location, the value, and the unique nature of the hotel. Let's start the It Factor with the location. The Merdeka 118 building is in a prime location here in Kuala Lumpur. You're right next to the Merdeka Stadium, and within 10 to 15 minutes you can get most places you want to get in the city. However, Park Hyatt does not have a complimentary house car for its guests like other luxury hotels that I've reviewed, so that may impact the It Factor. Another aspect of the It Factor is what makes the hotel unique. And I told you in the beginning about the controversy around the height here. So the Petronas Towers used to be the tallest in the entire world until 2004. Then they were the tallest in Malaysia, and then they added a spire to the top of Merdeka that made this building the very tallest. That spire was actually inspired by the Prime Minister's hand at a rally in 1957. The unique nature of this hotel is pretty obvious. The sheer size, magnitude, and height of this development really cannot be understated. Now, the hotel does have a couple of odd quirks, like pets aren't allowed in the building, they're completely prohibited, for example, but just the fact that you are so high up in the air really can't be beat, other than the Burj Khalifa, of course. And finally, the value. Yes, a stay here at the Park Hyatt is more expensive than other luxury hotels in the area, but it's still an accessible price per night for an international traveler. The breakfast service test was very fairly priced, as was the spa here, so I definitely think it's worth it to stay, if not just for the views you get all the way on the 112th floor. So with the location, the value, and the unique nature of the hotel in consideration, I gave the It Factor an 8.5 out of 10. So that was the Park Hyatt Kuala Lumpur. I absolutely recommend this stay if you're ever in the city. I was so pleasantly surprised. If you add all of the scores together throughout this review, I gave Park Hyatt in Merdeka 118 here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, a 39.5 out of 50. With that, unfortunately, it is time to check out. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ryan Walker, and we'll see you in the next one.